So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Committee of the Whole for the Village of Lytton for December 2nd, 2025. Before we begin, I would like to remind everyone to please turn off your videos, mute your microphones, and allow council to begin. Please note that this meeting is being recorded, but not broadcasted. Thank you, Your Worship. You may call the meeting to order.
Thank you. I call this Committee of the Whole meeting of Tuesday, December the 2nd to order at 11:01. Going to begin by recognizing that we're gathered here this morning on the unceded traditional ancestral lands of the Entlacapan people. Let's begin now by having a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Lightfoot and a seconder.
I'll second.
Councillor McCann. All those in favor? Carried. And we need to adopt the minutes of the November 4th meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. Seconder, Councillor Lightfoot. Were there any errors or omissions? Those in favor? Carried. I'll turn it back over to you, Corporate Officer Storoshenko, for the public comment.
Thank you. We now invite members of the public to provide comments on items related to the agenda. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand function. You can find that by clicking on React at the bottom of your screen and then select raise hand. When it's your turn, I'll read your name and ask you to unmute yourself. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. Speakers are asked to please state and spell your name, provide your address, and indicate the item number you're speaking to. If anyone would like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. I'll call for a second time. If anyone would like to speak, please use the raise hand function now. And thank you, Mayor O'Connor. Is there anyone at the Parish Hall?
One here this morning.
Okay, so that concludes the public comment portion of the meeting. Back to you, Your Worship.
All right, so we will move right on, and we're here today to discuss draft expenditure budget for 2026. And I believe we have our CIO, Diane Monbriquet. There you go, Diane.
Thank you, Mayor O'Connor. Good morning, everyone. Yes, as Mayor O'Connor has just said, our discussion this morning is around our expenditure budget for 2026. So what we've done this year is we've broken it up into 2 separate discussions. We're going to discuss expenses and service levels today. And then at the next Committee of the Whole meeting, we'll look at some revenue options and some ways to raise funding to cover those expenditures. So wanted to take an opportunity, particularly when we have the revenue discussion, just to delve into a couple of options or different ways of looking at it that's maybe more extensive than what we've looked at before. And so I thought it would be too much to kind of cram into one meeting. So we'll do this side first, and then we'll do the other side in a month's time. So you do have in your package a draft summary expenditure budget for 2026. So as you all know, after Christmas, we will start the process to prepare our 5-year financial plan. It includes the budget for 2026 and then a forecast for 2027, 28, 29, and 2030. Can't believe I'm saying that. That all gets approved by bylaw kind of later in the spring. So this is the very beginning of that process. At our last Committee of the Whole meeting, we had a bit of a discussion around just the annual plan and sort of the initiatives that will then drive the budget. We're still in a place where a lot of the work that we do outside of regular day-to-day operations is related to recovery and is funded by some of those recovery funds that we have, which is separate from the budget we're looking at today. What I will say, the budget that we're looking at today is what you would think of as normal village operations, but we've been provided with some funding from municipal affairs to help us as we're working through the recovery period, recognizing that we have ordinary village operations that are maybe a bit enhanced because of the fire and some of the additional work that's required as a result of that. So when we're preparing the budget documents, we look at what are all of the functions and services that we provide that are a typical municipal government function. So, for example, You know, we have a CAO and we have an accounting manager and we have a corporate officer. Those three positions are all normal, you know, village functions. Lytton doesn't typically have three separate positions for those items. So the additional funding required for those three positions comes from the municipal affairs funding. So what I've done this year is when I prepared the budget, we've spoken about this before, but when I prepared the budget this year, I prepared two columns. One is the village operations, which is what will be funded from property taxes and other grant revenues that we receive. And the second column is municipal affairs funding. So these are those extra expenses that the village is incurring right now, that we would expect to go away in the future with the when the funding goes away. So I just did that just to provide that kind of additional context on paper for council, so you can kind of follow what I'm thinking as I'm kind of going through. So we are going to spend a few minutes just kind of walking through the different categories, and I'm going to give you a brief description of what types of things are included in them. If you have any questions at any time, feel free to stop me and ask me if I don't cover it or something's not clear. Lisa, it might be helpful if you could put the schedule up on the screen, if you have that available to you. There we go. It's a little bit small on my screen. I don't know what about if it is for you guys at the hall.
Can you make it a bit bigger, Lisa? We have paper copies in front of us as
Okay.
well.
Oh, okay. If everybody's got a copy in front of them, maybe we don't need to share.
No,
it.
we
can just-
don't. I apologize. No, we don't. There we go.
Okay.
That's better.
Okay.
There, perfect.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And so the first comment is just that, you know, these categories in this breakdown, this is a standard municipal government setup. Most municipalities use these categories and report in this way. So we follow kind of the standard template for that. And so the first category under general government, you know, we have a area we call corporate. That $3,000 is really just some money set aside in case there's some village office repairs needed. That's the only thing that's in that category. Under council, we have, so for the 2026 budget, budgeting $81,000. That budget includes council pay. It includes funds for attendance at conferences, so UBCM would be included in there. It does include some additional money for some just sometimes we do like a community meeting or something, and we need some money for food or for things like that. The one mistake that I made when I was preparing this is I was mixing up my years and I forgot to include the election. So the election will go under council. It will budget probably $80,000 for that. So in my mind, I was thinking the election would be happened before this year. So I did include money for new computers for council and a strategic planning session, but those would likely be in 2027. So I got a little bit of numbers to switch around there. So we'll be adding the election into the council budget. The administration budget is really the vast majority of it is made up of the insurance, the liability insurance for the village. We have right now we have rental costs for the parish hall and for our offices, and we have the cost of the corporate officer. So you can see that of the budget of 232,000, 66,000 of it is kind of what would be considered kind of regular expenses.
Sorry, just back up the 96 for the corporate officer. Sorry, what was that? That's the salary?
That's included in administration. Yes.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Yeah. And so in the 66,000 that's listed under village operations, that would be insurance and those items. The 166 that comes from the municipal affairs funding, that's going to be the corporate officer and the rental expense and those things that, again, aren't typical expenses of the village of Lytton.
Custodial.
What's that, sorry?
You've got custodial under there. That's a typical expense. It's going to go up.
We're
You're looking at a different chart too.
You're on a different chart.
Well, that
We're on
Yeah.
this next year.
She's going through this.
I thought that.
Yeah.
So.
So this is a little
It does
different,
match that somewhat.
similar, yeah.
That's just breaking it down more
Yes, through this one. Yeah.
into the totals, but it is in there in
Yeah.
this chart.
Oh, absolutely.
So is that not reflective of ongoing costs, Diane?
Well, right now the
Custodial?
custodial is covers the village office, very minimal cleaning, and primarily the parish hall.
Yeah.
So the parish hall and the rental is not necessarily going to be an ongoing cost for the village.
But the custodial services will be. Like
The-
going forward, I guess we're not even looking at the, okay, never mind.
Right. Yeah.
Just for
this
2026.
For next year. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
this year, I guess.
Yeah, it's almost 2026.
It's almost 2026. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Okay,
and
just to
then-
clarify that then,
Yeah.
Diane.
yeah,
The column we're looking at, village operations,
yes.
and which is typical, is that saying, is that an actual number or is that a number for 2026?
That's just a budgeted number for 2026.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Making sure I got it right.
Yeah. And further to my comments about the election, as we continue down the process, these numbers will continue to get, for sort of more work done to them, and some of them will change.
Yeah.
This is just, sort of where we're at today with with the information we have today. In the finance area, so currently in the finance area, we have budgeted the CAO, CFO position, as well as the accounting manager and all of the accounting staff. So in the future, we will have the accounting manager position. What I did was I picked one position as kind of a normal village operation, whether we call it whatever we call it. There's one position that will be, kind of a normal function. So that number is included in the 439, 131.
I'm lost. Where is this 439?
Finance under general government, finance,
Village operations.
And it is, say the number again?
439,
439,
131.
Oh, that's operations, okay, in the
We're
finance.
still on, we're still in general government there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the last category under general government is technology. And this again is, we've spoken about this when we've been looking at our quarterly financial reports. This includes all of the software licenses and all of the monthly fees that we pay for Microsoft 365 and SharePoint and those types of things. The amount of $12,725 that's over in the municipal affairs funding column, those are the fees that we pay for positions that are related to the recovery. So
I
those
see.
positions,
Right.
when they go away, those subscriptions will go away as well.
So does that include the monthly charges on all the village phones?
The phones are allocated to each department.
Okay,
So council has phones, finance has phones, they're all split up across the departments. Yeah,
Okay.
this is just software licensing, and a little bit of money to replace computers every year, $6,000 for computer replacements. Because we get on a bit of a cycle and replace a few every year.
Makes sense.
So the next area is protective services. And so this is made up of primarily fire, and then building inspections. So we're seeing a big decrease in fire budget this year, but not really, because 2025 budget included $80,000 for the replacement of equipment that was lost in the fire. So that's all the turnout gear and everything that was purchased this year. It also included $46,000 for the remaining work that needed to be done on the temporary fire hall. So
Okay.
neither one of those expenses would carry forward. So other than that, we've returned to sort of a more kind of typical fire budget. The other thing that's in the fire budget is $40,000 for UBCM funded programs. So when we talk about the revenue budget next time, we'll see a $40,000 revenue number, and those two just offset. We apply for those programs, and it's a direct revenue and expense that equal each other.
And that's every year ongoing?
The programs come out every year, yes, and we
Thanks.
can apply, over and over for
So
those.
it's stable funding is, I guess, my question. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
the-
if it doesn't occur, the program doesn't occur. If we
Yeah.
don't get the funding, we don't do the program. So
Okay.
they kind of go together.
Gotcha.
So the 92,000 includes stipends, call-outs, gases, insurance, inspections.
Exactly. Yep. Cell phones, a little bit of money for
right here.
training. Yeah, the insurance and repair and fuel for the fleet. Those
Because I
items are
know-
all in there.
The wish list used to come in like $100,000 or $120,000 when I was involved, and usually we could allocate 60 or 70. So this seems in keeping with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the TNRD inspection, building inspections contract is included there for 2026. But that wouldn't be kind of an ongoing expense at that level. That's just to help with the rebuilding and the the additional inspections and services that we require.
And that's coming out of recovery funding.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, but I do believe that, at some point we'll revert back to kind of the more typical agreement that we had with TNRD, but it was a fairly small amount on an annual basis. So we'll work with that as time goes on.
So, Diane, I'm sorry, this isn't my strong point, so I apologize if I
Yeah.
asked a bunch of stupid questions, but
No problem.
so this development planning services currently is under municipal affairs recovery funding. So come
Yeah.
2027, that's going to go, that budget item's going to go into regular operations.
Or you'll make a decision about whether or not it does that. Yes. Council will have an opportunity to examine all of these items and there's other positions as well that are noted in the report that are paid out of other recovery funding too. So we will have to have a discussion about what of those services we want to continue and how we move those into the regular budget and fund them.
Okay, so this 83.2 is Gray Wolf, like basically?
No, this 83.2 is actually the planning assistant that is being hired now to work on the OCP.
So
So
this 83.2 is the salary for that planning assistant?
yeah, that's right.
And so that will not be an ongoing
That's right.
budget item after 2027. Okay,
Right.
sorry, I thought this was inspections as well. Go ahead, sorry. Thank you for your patience.
So that's the planning services one.
Okay.
So now we can go on to public works. And so with public works and water and sewer, we take the positions that we have in those areas, which right now we have a senior water operator, a lead hand, and a maintenance worker. And the salaries get split between those three departments. So and what we're trying to do is get a really good record of how much actual time they spend on each of those functions, because as you know, the water and sewer utility are self-funding. So it's important to know how much time we spend on those activities. So with the exception of the salaries for public works, the majority of the expenditures are around things like materials and equipment and supplies and vehicles and insurance. There's a little bit of money in there for training, cell phones, propane for the new building, electricity for the new building, and then street lighting as well. So some of those costs will continue to increase as street lighting more. I think we're pretty close to done with street lights, but as any of those are added, then the cost of that increase for the electricity for those. And we don't know yet with any kind of certainty what it's going to cost to operate the new building. We just made some estimates based on information that we had, for the other buildings that we run in town. So the public works, the public works area is all regular village operations.
So again,
The
and-
senior water and sewer operator is in water and sewer. So you'll see down there where we have a municipal recovery funding piece for that. But for public works, it's all just typical operations. Sorry,
Okay,
Jen,
fine.
were you trying to ask something?
Yeah, I'm just to paraphrase. So the 113,801 represents like a portion of the salaries for public works because it's split out of different funding sources. I didn't really follow that.
Well, the staff that we have that work in public works also work in water and sewer. So we
Okay,
take
so
their salaries and we
I got
split.
it now. Okay.
Yeah,
So the
across.
113 represents the time spent in public works,
Exactly.
prorated
Yeah.
or whatever, like to the total time in water and sewer. So I'll wait till we get to water and sewer for my next question.
Plus all of the expenses that, to run public works, right? All of the
Right, yeah.
materials and supplies and everything. So that's all included in there. The cemetery costs, we just have a small amount in there for when we're preparing for a funeral and we have to provide services. That's just based purely on whatever demand there is. In the Parks Department, we haven't in the past couple of years spent a ton of money on parks. We've done, a lot of the labor is kind of pulled into public works if they're mowing grass and, doing work in weeding or that type of thing. This is just a small budget to allow us to buy materials. We might need some new flags. We might need some wood to build something or, just a small amount to cover that.
Diane?
And
Diane?
yeah.
Sorry. When is the opportunity to sort of like, if we as council, like I have an inkling that 6250 for Parks and Rec for 2026. Like
Yeah.
I personally, and this isn't something we discussed at the council, but I'd love to see more put into that so that we could have a little bit of a village, maintaining like a little bit of village beautification. Like we're 5 years in and we're still seeing a lot of like, for example, we have a local lady that would do like weed cleanup. So take all the what do you call that? The stuff that trips you up, the tumbleweed. It's like it's getting worse every year because it's not being taken out of all that, and especially up on the bluff. So like a contract for someone local like that to do would this be the time to bring it up? Or because once the budget's through, there won't be money there to propose something like that or put it forward as a notice of motion. So how does that work?
Yeah.
I would like to put a notice of motion forward about Mojave getting a $5,000 or whatever, a short-term.
Yeah, maybe let's not use names.
Person. Well, it would be specific to that in person because they're the one with the skill set, but and the knowledge of the plants in the village and the addition. Anyways, that's that person or a person to do something like that. How would I sort of promote that?
Well, I think at this conversation today, we're just sort of talking about all those different things, all those different ideas. There's no decisions being made. When a budget comes through, when the first draft budget comes through for approval, if there's something like that you're looking to see that isn't included, that would be the time to bring it up. And if council supports it, then staff would make the adjustment to the budget.
So that'll come forward as a draft budget in the next couple of meetings in the spring?
Yeah, I actually haven't done the calendar yet for the 2026 process, but it typically comes, I think, at the end of February for the first time.
Okay, and then we will have time, like it won't be like those 11th hour, if we don't get this through, we're gonna miss some deadline, like we'll be given the opportunity to, suggest, maybe putting more money into Parks and Rec or taking money out of here and putting it in fire. Is that the time to do it, or is it now?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
that is the time, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and then the 250 is just the raft takeout lease that we have with CN. So that's just a little number that kind of hangs around in there. So then the next department there is water services. So currently, we have extra expenses in water related to the senior water wastewater operator that we have on contract because we don't have a certified operator on staff. And so those expenses are being covered by the municipal recovery funding. Other than salaries, again, in water, we do have some materials and supplies. One of the challenges with both water and sewer is, we can budget all we like, but if something explodes and they need to fix it, they sort of need to do whatever they need to do to get it fixed. And so we do have a supplies budget, but there could always be an overage in that. And that's why we do those quarterly reports every quarter to try to identify any of those issues that have come up and manage them somewhere in the budget, look for some savings somewhere else, something like that. And so the sewer department is the same. It has the extra expenses related to the level 2 operator that we have, which is funded by the municipal affairs funding, and then supplies and those types of things. We don't charge the vehicles to water and sewer. We charge them all to public works. You know, technically we could take something like the vehicles and charge them to the utilities in the same percentage as the salaries, right? Like that wouldn't be inappropriate if we wanted to ensure that the users of the water system and the users of the sewer system are covering the expenses of those systems.
Yeah.
Where the property taxes just apply to everybody, whether
Yeah.
you're using anything or not, right? So those are the kinds of discussions we're going to have when we talk about the revenue options. You know, how we want to structure some of those user fees and property tax rates. So that's
Mayor Open?
Yes.
May I ask a question? 2 questions before we leave this page. Do we charge individuals for cemetery use? Like when somebody wants to get buried there, that not,
yes,
that charge gets offset onto, or
Yes.
like downloaded onto the person?
that
So
that offsets the costs. Yes.
so, but we don't make any money, we break even on that. So what's the $1,000 for the
That's just
cemetery?
that's for preparing the site. This is just
Nope.
the expense side.
Sure, but I mean, it's nominal, but, or negligible, but don't we, charge the family that?
Yeah, we do that, and
preparation?
that'll be on the revenue side.
Of course. Okay. Excuse my
Yeah.
ignorance. And then the reserves, like when we did that financing, Noni and Denise, you did it as well. They talked a lot about how reserves are a really good way. Actually, the guy said it was the least transparent part of budgeting, which I found
Mhm.
interesting. But with,
Mhm.
you know, everybody knows my concerns about post 2026 and the, you know, the CIO budget and the Parks and Rec budget and that sort of thing. Is it
Yeah.
possible to establish a CAO 20, like a reserve for that position post Diane Momberket?
Council can establish a reserve for anything they wish. And
Okay.
so it, you know, I think it was about last year this time, we actually consolidated a lot of old reserves that
Right.
had been set up for things that we no longer needed. But council at any time, and one of the suggestions that you'll see when we look at the 5-year plan is, you know, we're going to have an $80,000 expense in 2026 for the budget. There'll be a recommendation that from then forward, we start putting $20,000 a year into a reserve for the election, as an
Right.
example, because an $80,000 hit is a lot in 1 year.
20 makes sense, sure.
But
you know,
but
it's
20
worth
kind of puts it over the 4 years, right? So that'll be a recommendation I expect that I'll be bringing forward when we do the 5-year plan. So that's, you know, council can establish a reserve at any time that they wish.
So the answer to my question is yes, that's a good idea. And that might be something in your report for the 5-year plan. And that
Yeah.
we could establish a reserve for, say, a 7-year period to have the skill set that we need through the finishing of, I guess, you know, the recovery. I got told that off by, not told off, but Jack Keogh was like, stop trolling at the end of.
Try not to use names.
Sorry, but told like it's not, like that recovery period is ongoing. We shouldn't keep saying recovery ends in 2026 because it's actually, even though our funding and things like that, it's not something that just gets finished in 4 or 5 years. It is like a 10-year kind of, yeah, or longer, right? So when you talk about recovery, it is a longer. So I'm hoping that reserve gets established.
I kind of see it different in that personnel, that's always a position you'll need. So you need to have a reasonable expectation of what that's going to cost you. The capital things like fire trucks, public works, water and sewer, those have unexpected expenses. And so to me, it makes more sense to have reserves for those expenses that would be deemed unexpected.
Right,
Whereas,
like a contingency fund.
right, well, a reserve or whatever. And so that's why normally you'd like to have a surplus in water and sewer so that those unexpected events can be addressed quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas personnel or whatever, once you decide on the composition of your staff, there's just a reasonable expense to expect as you move forward.
And with talking about the election and putting aside some for an election, from past experience, that would at least cover you for the election you know you're going to have in 4 years. It may not cover you for the by-elections that pop up from time to time, but at least it would be
Right.
covering that one that you know you're going to have.
Right.
Yeah.
Mayor O'Connor, can I just jump in to say, I'm hoping that we're not going to get into too much of a discussion today about people and positions and things. We will have a more robust discussion at a later time about the actual staffing requirements and what the plan is going to be for positions. This is just looking at kind of the standard, village positions that we've kind of always run on. We've always had a similar structure. So I just wanted to mention that we'll get into more details about all of the specifics at
Yeah.
a later time.
And you mentioned the next committee to hold will be about the revenues, about money that we'll be bringing in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you did provide these other charts here, and as Councillor Toss mentioned earlier, they line up with this expenditure budget summary sheet. And what I appreciated on here was seeing the 2020 and 2019 information and the comparisons.
I thought that you might find that helpful, because we
Yeah.
always wonder what it was like, but what we did before the fire, right?
Yeah.
So it gives you
And
that.
so much has lined up just almost perfectly here.
Mhm.
I know one of my, not necessarily that I didn't know this, because I think I did, but definitely you look at public works and you look at general government are really the two big areas that our money is spent on as a municipality. That's what we raise our money for.
That's what we do. That's what we do. And we don't have any detail about what happened in 2019 or 20 because that was all lost in the fire. All we have are just these numbers, but I thought they still provided a reference that could be helpful.
So the only thing I see missing, like I'm just thinking back from, prior to 19 or whatever, is I think under Parks and Recreation and Culture, there was a bigger budget for the museum and for the pool.
Yeah.
So it's just not mentioned specifically in that column. And so I would suggest that that's, as Councillor Toss said, maybe Parks needs to be higher, but maybe actually it's pool and museum.
And maybe a reserve for lifeguards or something like that as well. Like I
That
don't,
was in the pool. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think we need to take some of this funding and squirrel it away somehow.
I don't know that
They'll go for
it's
that?
allowed. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you are and sometimes you're not.
I do think that, as I noted in the report, I do expect that at the end of 2026, there will be a surplus remaining from the funding that's been provided by municipal affairs. And through my preliminary conversations with them, I'm fairly confident that if we presented them with a plan for some ongoing recovery related expenses, they will not have any issue with the funding being spent on that. I think it will probably be less attractive to them to have it swallowed up into general operations, because I think from their perspective, they want to make sure that Lytton taxpayers are paying their fair share in things, right? And one of the things they regularly ask me for is a report on our outstanding taxes receivable, because they want to make sure that the people of Lytton are paying their part, and then they're happy to kick in for the extra expenses. So that just kind of gives me a little bit of a gauge of how they're viewing it. And so I think that like I said, we won't have any, I don't think we'll receive any challenge if we have ongoing recovery expenses. And Jen, to your point, I think 2026 was kind of talked about because that is the expiry date of many of our funding agreements. And so like maybe let's call it like the official recovery period, but of course things continue. Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure. There'll be many things that, in a year's time, we'll be looking at lists of things that are still to be done and assigning dollars to that, right?
Special
And then
liability.
taking that forward to
That was the
our
other one.
funding partners.
Noni just reminded me when she said sidewalks. That's another thing that popped into my head when I was thinking of it, like swirling money for a reserve. And I know that's maybe the wrong term. However we do that for Parks and Rec, I see it for the CAO. And then for exactly what Noni said, like that sidewalk repair, because I've heard over and over again, they don't necessarily, we haven't budgeted for that yet. And it is
Mhm.
so important for people investing in the village, families like you up, and even just for that, what was it, the one stop, our economic plan of having it as the rest stop, we still need
And
that.
those are conversations I think we're going to have as a council, and there may be opportunity for grants for some of these things as well.
And
Right.
there
has been in the past.
Sidewalks.
There has been in the past. I know when we redid the sidewalks in Lytton here a number of years ago. I don't know if it was NDIT or what it was, but it was a grant money that did that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's
It was one
those are
bucket
conversations, to
right?
have.
That was
Yeah.
one little bit, I think it was the first. And
No, I'm talking quite a few years ago.
well, while I was here at the trailer park, they did the one strip.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal. So it is expensive and it is a huge undertaking, and it is necessary in the village. So I'm really hoping we have some money put aside for that.
Well, I think what
And
I'm
with
hearing
many
you
of our-
say, Jen, is that you want these things on the list so that they don't get lost. So
For sure.
expenses that we can see forecasting, even though we may not know the revenue for them,
Exactly.
Yeah.
to have on the list. So that's where the fire smart comes in. That's where the sidewalks comes in. That's where the ongoing pool and museum maintenance comes in. All these things that we can see, maybe not here, but as something that, do we want to start that in 2026? Make sure it's on the list so that as the income gets looked at, you start saying, well, where can we find money for this then?
Or you looking for.
And is it a priority?
Programs that will fund that
Yes.
type of activity.
Yes.
But the other thing is we need to be reasonable in our expectations.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to do sidewalks until water and sewer are done.
Yes.
We don't want to do, slopes into, properties until we know what's going to be built and where they want their driveway.
Yes.
I don't know, historically, gas tax, I'm not sure what it's called now, community something or other. That was specifically for those type of things,
Yeah.
like sidewalks, and that's an ongoing income, I believe, at this point.
Diane? Yeah.
Sorry,
And-
Diane.
No, and I was just going to say, I mean, part of what we're planning to do as well is, to your point, Councillor Lightfoot, as we, complete the water and sewer projects, the roads and sidewalks get done as we go through. So what we want to do is kind of, get some of that work completed and get some of those roads and sidewalks finished and see, okay, what pieces are left and where do we have funding? Do we have recovery funding? Do we have gas tax? Do we have a grant? Do we have, and there might be a number of different places that we get the funding from, to kind of package all that together.
As
for
long as
those-
it's on
for
our
those
radar,
things like that.
as long
Yeah.
as we're
Yeah.
making sure that
I
there's
think
provision.
the
for
other
that.
piece is we have to, I think you said it, manage others, people's expectations and our own. We have a certain level of service that we have to provide, and we have to be able to afford that.
Yeah.
Making sure we are providing the essential services that we need to provide, right?
Yeah.
As we plan and move forward. Yeah.
And then just to kind of wrap that up, just, in terms of this staff functions that are not represented anywhere in this budget because they're paid for out of recovery funding or grant funding, this water and sewer grants, we currently have a director of development, a municipal engineer, a contract administrator, a project accountant, a capital projects recovery and emergency management position, kind of all lumped together, a communications advisor, and a construction advisor. So, although they are recovery or grant, we do enjoy their services into our regular village operations as well. Right. So we will have some, as I said, some decisions to make about how or if we want to incorporate any of that once the
Irregular
specific
operations.
funding for it is gone. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Sorry, just,
Councillor Toss?
thank you. Is the director of development, that's Carolyn's job. That's the director of development
That's
/ FDev. Okay. Thanks.
Correct. Yeah.
And
Okay.
it may be that we can't afford to have a full-time person, but we look for grant funding to bring in, say, like economic development worker through NDIT or some other agency that can provide funding.
Right.
So that's the challenge of our staff in the future, is to search out those additional funds that every municipality in the province is, able to avail themselves of.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Just on the ECDev position itself, I know I believe that the chamber's coming on the 9th. Is that right? To speak to council? Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I'm going to be in Mexico, which really sucks because
Mm.
I was hoping to be a part of that discussion. But one of the things I think the chamber would like to propose to council, because like think about some members of the chamber expediting the grocery store coming back, for example. That's done under the chamber and private society. I think what the chamber would like to do would be to assist with some of those roles in economic development. And if there are some responsibilities, because they're doing it now without any compensation, and then we have a position in-house that is compensated very highly, this could be a win-win, bringing the ECDEV a little bit more locally and bringing the money into the community by actually using the chamber to perform some of those functions. I think they're going to speak
That'll
to
be, as you said, mentioned, we're going to be
Online,
meeting with them.
but when
So
we're-
those will be conversations
that.
that,
But we're talking about that now with the director of development and these different sort of the ECDEV positions specifically, because I think the chamber's done amazing work, and we need to recognize that as a council and as a community, because these volunteer positions are the people that are making this community roll. Thank you.
thank you. Any other thoughts that?
Well, it'll be interesting to see the revenue stream.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I did want to mention that we did have questions about fire smarting. I did find something about fire smarting somewhere. And then there was no money there though.
Well, right now we have the
Except
fire
back in the
smart,
day.
the responsibility for it kind of falls under one of the positions that's paid under recovery for capital projects, recovery and emergency management. And then typically, the public works team execute on the activities within the village that they're able to, but there's no additional resources dedicated for that. They're just doing it along with everything else. As you know, we do have the joint funding with LFN through the UBCM emergency services grants. And so that is intended to have some impact in the village, but we will need to talk about what we want that level to be. And I think we had a brief discussion maybe a couple months ago about, potentially looking at a program where we could assist some of the property owners that aren't located in Lytton with keeping their property
Right.
fire smarted. And, so there's a couple of different things that we will continue to talk about. It's not forgotten. It is on the list.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of, how we can do it with the resources we have and how we can,
Exactly. Yeah.
right?
And
Kind
then
of wrap that in.
people recognize that it is being done.
Yeah. And that it is important. Like it's important to us and
Oh,
everybody
yeah.
has to kind of do their part, right? It's not
Yeah.
just the village. Everyone
And
has
it
to
is
do it.
something that's, I won't say new, but it's new. Like it's not a line, it was never a line item in budgets.
Well, apparently
You
it
know,
was, because it was
way back.
back then.
Uh,
There's $9,000 in 2020 and in 2020,
Okay.
2019. So clearly it was there then.
You're right. There was fire smart programs back then.
Yeah.
I think the village itself received the Fire Smart grant.
Yeah.
And so, the meetings with the lunch and all that, the lunch and the events, a couple of events a year.
Yeah.
But the village had the grant, not LFN and the village.
Yeah.
I find it somewhat
It's
confusing.
shifting.
I'm not really sure where
Yeah.
what the village is entitled to or.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I
Yeah.
just, it's
Yeah.
quite fuzzy to me.
That's
So,
Tanya, right?
Yeah.
There's three.
We do see a fire smart remediation happening within the village through that committee. We have seen a couple of times the last few
Mhm.
years,
Yeah.
but
But the finances all goes through LFN
yeah.
at this.
Yeah, we
current
don't
time.
see any of it. Yeah,
That's
we
right.
don't see any
Yeah,
of what's
right.
happening there.
Big
And
question.
we'd had discussions with Tanya Durant from LFN, the fire smart or the fire coordinator, emergency coordinator over there, the last couple of years about even just jointly hiring a crew, and we would contribute. But
Yeah.
if it's, you know, if you have one crew with one truck and one set of equipment, that's much more efficient than having, you know, a small crew here and a small crew there. So,
Yeah.
you know, we have brought that forward and said that, you know, we would be willing to participate financially in that, as long as fire smarting the village was part of the program, right?
Yeah.
So I think we have to continue with those discussions. I think that's kind of the best way to, one of the best
Yeah.
ways to, that we can get some of that done.
I think so too.
Jennifer?
Thank you. Just a question. I know we're not doing revenues yet, but it's to Councillor McCann's fire sorting question. Are we currently, and I know this will be a revenue question, but are we currently, I know we have a grandfathered or an old agreement with CN that we would do the fuel management and build them out. Has that been happening?
We don't have an actual agreement with them, like a written agreement. We have, we do it in the Pioneer Cemetery. That one, that agreement has continued, and we've continued to do the work in there and bill them for it. We're just trying to get to the bottom of what the story is around the rail lines themselves and who's doing what and who's responsible. And Brian Baxter has taken the lead on that to try to get some answers, but it's not always easy to get to the right person.
Right.
Because a lot of the local people are operational, like railway operational, not necessarily property managers, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy.
I have to say, speaking with other mayors and other municipalities, like it's not just a Lytton issue with the railways. It's a bigger issue. Right?
That's what I
It's a huge
understand. as well.
challenge.
So
Yeah,
well,
the
I
answer is no, we're not doing it.
And I think that we're not doing anything with them right now. And I think we
Thank you.
tried to bring this forward at UBCM as well. But the provincial government doesn't have any effect on CN or CP on the railways. So
I think at the Fire Smart Policy Committee, we did talk about perhaps a united front between Lytton First Nation and the village addressing the right of way along the rail lines with, you know, a joint letter of some sort or whatever to, you know, bring attention to the issue might be useful. It hasn't progressed any more than discussion at this point. But I know in the past, CP had stacks of old ties between the underpass and somewhere up in there, and we tried to get them to move it, and they said, no, we don't have to. You know, it's our business. We can stack them wherever we want. So there is a reluctance. So, you know, as much as LFN and the village being united might have impact, I guess UBCM and all the communities along the rail line maybe need to unite to pressure.
And there was that fire up there forever as well. And
You finally got it. Yeah.
maybe put it on our list for Silga,
Yeah.
right? Start
Yeah.
at Silga and then move it forward from there.
Yeah.
So back to this, what we're looking at
Mhm.
on the list of more specific things, Diane.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a couple things. I just kind of wonder what they are.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at administration, so the second block.
Yeah.
And administration is that advertising?
Yes, it is.
And that's
So
for
that
things
might be
like
if
when
we
you have to
post-
do
post a
official community
job.
plan or whatever in a job.
Yeah, post
Okay.
a job posting, something like that.
Okay, so
so that would be like paying for.
there's nothing in 2026 for that, or is there? No, there isn't. So we don't
Yeah,
even
so-
have,
Yeah, so we should probably put, we should probably put a number in there for that.
yeah,
19, it was 2,500. So you can probably guess 3,000 or.
Probably.
yeah, well, they do a lot less than we used to do, but still, yeah.
Well, because we don't have
Um,
to advertise in the paper every time now. Remember, we changed
Right.
that.
Yeah, it's
the bylaw
changed.
for notifications.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I was kind of wondering about the, well, because it's been made to come to my attention personally, the cell phones and the iPads that we have.
Yeah.
What is the process that's in place? So when we got elected, we got given these very nice cell phones and iPads to use. And what's the assumption? Like, is the assumption that at the end of our term, we give these back to the Village of Lytton, and what does the Village of Lytton do with them? if we're reelected, if we decide to run again and we're reelected, do we get the same one back? Or is there a policy that everybody gets a brand new one, a fresh start at the next council, and we're going to recycle these? Like, what happens? Do we have a plan?
Well, what typically happens with all technology, not just councils, but typically what happens is when a staff member or a council member has a piece of, when they leave, we take their
Yeah.
technology back. We
Yeah.
wipe it and then we repurpose it. So generally there's somebody down the line that has an older version and they get your version and their version gets retired for good. So that's what happens. We always have computers and not iPads. We don't, the only people that use iPads are Public Works. So the rest of the staff don't have those. But when it comes to phones, we always have people with old phones. And so
Yeah.
we pass them down the line. If you were to get reelected, if you said to me, Diane, I just want to keep mine, it's all set up, I like it, it's working fine. Fine. If you
Yeah.
say, it's always glitching, it still shuts down on me, I need a new one, that's fine too. We would
Oh, okay.
deal with it. So in 2027, we will budget for 5 new devices,
Yeah.
And
assuming
just-
we could have 5 new people.
Yeah, just to clarify, so you said only staff have iPads, I think you said.
Only
Council
Public
have-
Works.
Or Public Works. So council has iPads, and that's
Yeah.
because right after the fire, there was some kind of a grant or a donation or something of all these iPads because they had to work remotely. There was no village office.
Yeah.
And so that's what we ended up with getting
Mhm.
those same ones. But it's not common practice, I don't believe, for.
I think
for the
now
library, not.
I think
Yeah.
in 2025, you'd be provided with a device, either an iPad or a laptop, depending on what your preference is, because everything is electronic. We distribute everything electronically now. And so
Right.
it's not reasonable to expect people to use their own personal computer, nor do we want them to do that from a security
Yes.
perspective. So
Yeah.
we would continue.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, Jennifer.
I never thought of this before, but if we were to not run again or not be elected again, is there any provision, or could we put forward, I mean, I guess it would be the wish of council, but to perhaps like be able to, I'm sure the phones can be back, because that's not really an asset, but the computer, would we be able to maybe establish a policy to buy out the computer at the end of our term?
That would be up to council if they
They're
would
kind
like
of
to, if
old
they would
and
like to allow
really
that.
something you'd go forward with anyways. I'm suspecting that if someone else
Yeah.
came into this position, they'd want a newer computer anyways. So maybe
Yeah.
if I could buy it out for 300 or something
Yeah.
at the end, maybe we could produce a
Yeah.
policy around that.
Yeah, I wondered about that too.
Thank you.
Just for information.
Nobody thinks so too.
TND, I was there for what, 2 or 3 terms, so I had 2 or 3 laptops during that time, and they changed technology
Mhm.
every 3 or 4 years, so it was, a different make, a different model and
Exactly.
everything. So there was the option that if you wanted to, you could buy your old device,
Right.
but you took it in, you got it scrubbed, and then they gave it back to you.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're actually in the process right now of creating a bunch of different HR policies, but one of them is a use of village property. And so that's where something like that, a statement about that would lie,
Mhm.
would be in a policy like that.
Mhm.
But I mean, technology now, I mean, my computer is just about 3 years old and I'm actually on my Mac to you guys today because my computer has melted down and it's not working anymore.
Yeah.
So,
That's what I'm thinking.
Sydney-
Well, even the phones after 4 years,
Yeah,
their batteries aren't as good as they were, right?
the stuff doesn't last like it used to, right?
I just got a
So-
text that TNRD does have a policy for buying out computers, so maybe we can do this.
Yeah.
Well, and the village did get iPads before the.
Yes, yeah.
I've got one. It's 12 years old. It doesn't hold much of a charge, but I can charge it every day and
Maybe
still
we'll get
use it.
back to the topic here. Sorry. We got onto a technology.
Software, it's a possibility. Moving on.
I don't think that's
Yeah.
hard to put together. Yeah, that's not a hard thing to bring
Very
forward.
simple.
Back onto
Yeah.
village expenses, which is why we're here for this,
Yeah.
this meeting.
So for
Noni, did
next
you have another
year,
question? You'd said you had a couple of questions. Was there anything else?
Sorry, who?
Noni, sorry. Noni was she
Yeah.
had said she had a couple of questions.
I was just
wondering
going
if you-
through this. So on the detail chart,
Mhm.
just thinking ahead. So in 2026, are we likely to have any different building expenses? Like we won't be moved into the well, maybe the public works building would be the administration difference right there.
The Public Works building is budgeted in Public Works.
Yeah,
And in administration, we have costs for we have the rental costs are one piece of it, but we have the like the propane and the electricity for the parish hall. So
yeah.
I thought if
Okay.
the village office came on at the end of the year, we probably have a little bit of wiggle room there to,
Yeah,
it would be near the end of the year.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah, so they
Yeah.
balance each other off,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
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 Do we have a timeline on that? So the village office is hoping to be done in 2026?
Yeah, because we're going to be, we're just about to submit for the building permit and
Okay.
issue a tender for a contractor. So
Oh, yeah.
The reason
It
I
should
asked
be-
is because So the reason I asked is because I'm so gunning to get the sort of like the administration in the village. So I put
Mhm.
forward a notice of motion. If there's any chance of it not being finished in 2026,
mhm.
I'd like to see our.
So we'll go back to expenses again.
Yeah.
I think we'll
yeah.
have a better sense once we post the tender and close the tender, whether or not we have responses, because that's part of our challenge always, right? Is getting
Right.
contractors to come to Lytton. And so we're hoping that by posting it in January, we'll be a little bit ahead of some of the other projects that aren't going to start till say May, because we can
Right.
start probably in February, or March. And so maybe maybe there'll be more people with an open calendar,
Mhm.
that would be looking to do the job.
So I guess what I'm saying is, what kinds of things are we likely to see in 2026 that may not be on this list right now, right? Because you would want to include as much stuff as possible on here that we could
Mhm.
have as an expense. So even though it might be an in and out expense, like if the summer worker, for example,
Yeah,
right? And the potential for swimming pool lifeguards. So those things I would kind of see as potential expenses that would probably get funded by grants, but nonetheless, you might want to
Yeah.
have them on the list because it's something that may come up if things all go well.
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a
and the
whole
other
expense.
thing is the other thing is to remember, and to your point, Noni, like we can always make changes, but once your tax rate is set, it's set. You can't
Yeah.
change your tax rate. So
Yeah.
if we add something to our expense budget in July, we can do that just for financial management purposes,
Yeah.
but we can't raise the money because the
Nope.
tax rate's set, right?
Nope.
And it's done. So
Yeah.
it is important to try to foresee,
Right.
anything that might be coming.
Yeah.
But the reality is our land taxes, even prior to fire, were only 25% of the village expenses every year.
Revenues?
Right? Revenues were only maybe 25%. So the tax base, while important, is really only a portion of our revenue stream.
Mhm.
But right now, really, the only consistent grant that we get is the Small Communities Grant, which is about $400,000. That has continued on because a lot of the other grants have the exact same amount of expenses associated with them, like the
Okay.
UBCM
yeah.
Emergency Services Grant. I said when we looked at the fire budget, we've got $40,000 of expenses in there that will only be spent if we have a $40,000 revenue
Yeah.
number to offset them. But we're
Right.
not going to
Yeah.
have a $45,000 revenue number with 40,000. Do you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
always,
Yeah.
they're for very specific programs now. And there's less and less general grants available. So it's moving more towards, I think we're going to start to see a greater share paid for by property
That's
taxes.
why we're hearing that in bigger municipalities. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah. But that's why it's also very important to get the water and sewer expenses right, because
Yes.
they're paid by a different base, right? They're paid for by a different group of people. A lot
Utilities.
of them overlap, but it's a different group of people that pay for water and sewer than pay for property
Taxes.
taxes,
Yeah.
right? So it's a
Yeah.
user fee.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have more questions, Counselor?
Not right now, no, I don't think so.
Does anyone know off the top of their head, how many meetings do we have before the end of our term? About 20?
No.
So back to this, sorry, Counselor Dawes. Like one of the things I noticed as well is we have about the bottom line in expenses, budget expenses right now, just over $1 million of village operations. I looked at like 20 and 2019, very similar. Surprised me, I guess, because of inflation, because costs have gone up so much, right? That's good. I'm not saying it's not good, but I just, yeah.
Was that not by design, Denise or Diane?
No, it wasn't. And you know, it's interesting because I noticed that as well. And as I said, like I can't delve into any of the detail of those 19 or 20 expenses. So for example, that Fire Smart number, I'm sure there's probably a revenue that offsets it. That was probably a funded program. Like I don't know how much of these programs were funded because I don't know what they were. And the other thing is, and you know, I think, you know, and as, like I said, we're going to have a more detailed discussion further on about personnel, and we can, you know, we can talk about that, about whether or not, you know, this budget is trying to run it too thin, right? In terms of expectations and what we want done and those types of things. So, you know, this is where we're at today, but that doesn't mean it's right. Right.
Sure.
Or right. So we'll have the opportunity to look at that for sure.
You know, I feel bad. Counselor Michelle is on, and I just thought, do you have any questions or thoughts, Counselor Michelle, regarding this presentation?
No, it's all pretty straightforward for me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I figured as much. Thank you. We're so glad to have a council member with some financial background. So, if that is it, yeah, I really appreciate this information. And as Councillor Toss mentioned earlier, we all, three of us anyways, went to a session on municipal finance and budgeting and such. And I was so glad I went, because when I read this, I just, things sort of fell into place for me that I didn't quite get beforehand. So really appreciate this presentation and this meeting today. And it'd be really interesting to see the next one, which will be in January, I believe the first Tuesday of January, our next goal. Focus on revenues, the money coming into the village. And from that, we'll be able to then take those and compare them and as we're going through the budget process. So,
well, and then there'll be the basis for the budget that comes forward for an actual approval, right? For a consideration, right? This is just to try to help, you know, gain some understanding. I was just going to say, Mayor O'Connor, if anybody who attended that session has any questions about how this connects to something you heard there that day, by all means, just reach out. I'm happy to try to connect the dots on something. So.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you for that.
There's the reserve budget for me, the reserve.
Can I add one comment?
Yes, please.
Thanks, Diane. Basically, when I went through earlier, if I could see, I found the column when you added the municipal 2.1 that I could go through. I could take that total. I could take that away from the budget total and see the difference and how that difference lines up with past history. And I found that really helpful to just have that frame of reference in my mind, say, okay, this is the money that's assisting, that's helping out. And so if you don't count that, you're still looking well within what was normal operations 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think that other people besides us who look at this, and I'm sure there's at least three that have looked at this, will kind of go through the same process and come to the same conclusion. So thank you for taking the time to put it this way so you can see what's going on. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, Councilor.
I just wanted to agree with Mayor O'Connor. I mean, the total amount to me seems low. I used to say we ran on 1.3, 1.4. So, but but it's good that it's low. And then as we fill in the blanks, it may go up a
Mhm.
little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
contracts have gone up, electricity's gone up. So,
Mhm.
but it's really good information. Great start. Thank you.
So can I receive a motion, can we have a motion to receive this report for information?
So move Lightfoot.
Thank you. And a seconder? I'll second. Thank you, Councillor McCann. And all those in favor? Carried. Great. So that brings us to the end of this committee of the whole meeting. And I'm going to turn it back over to Corporate Officer Starchenko.
Actually, I do need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
We need a motion to adjourn. Can I please have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Councillor McCann, and a seconder. Toss. Thank you, Councillor Toss. All those in favor? Carried. And thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Mayor Connor. So that concludes the committee of the whole meeting for December, whatever date we are, December 2nd. We ask that, yes, thank you for joining us and have a great day.